Hi, welcome to another BookTube video. I'm Bekah and this is Bekah's Bookshelves. It's now Sunday at 5 p.m. and about an hour ago I finished reading Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn and I absolutely love that. Well, 4-star rating I gave it. And I'm just about to start my next book and I spotted on Goodreads that it's actually rated quite low, and when I've looked at my TBR, it's the 4th lowest rated book on my TBR. And it's something that I actually thought would be very interesting, and I was really looking forward to it. I purchased the book, waited for it to arrive, and I'm finally getting to read it, and I'm feeling a little bit unsure now. We all know that there's too many books and just not enough time in this life to read them all, and my TBR is growing by the day, so I'm starting to feel a little anxious about spending time on a book that might be horrible. It's called More Than It Hurts You by Darren Strauss. And what I thought was, why it's rated so low, it might actually be interesting to do a little kind of vlog of reading this book over the next few days, just to see what I think. What's quite daunting is that it's 401 pages and the writing is absolutely, it's just tiny. It's really tiny. And like that there is just the first chapter. The first chapter is 105 pages long. Like all that in tiny writing. And the book is about Munchausen's by proxy, about a couple who've got this child. This child's unwell, and then there are queries as to whether Munchausen's by proxy is at play here, and this child isn't really ill. And that's as much as I know about it. That's as much as I needed to know about it. So I'm gonna give it a go and get started, and I'll see how far I get. I'll check back in a few hours before I go to bed and just let you know how far I've got. I probably won't have even read the first chapter, but we'll see, and I'll speak to you all soon. Hi, I promise you an update, and it's a little later than I was hoping. It's now 10:15 and I've been in bed for a couple of hours. Not in bed, but just sat on the bed reading. And I've not got as far as I would have hoped with this at all. The first thing I want to say is that when I was panicking earlier that the first chapter was 100 and something pages long, it's not. It turns out that the book is written in sections and each section starts with chapter 1. So I've just read what I think you'd call the introductory section because it's not numbered, and that was 39 pages long. So I planned on reading it most of the evening, but got a little distracted with other things, made tea, got a bit distracted by Pitch Perfect 3 on Netflix. It just wasn't pulling me in, really. So I ended up doing other things, but I've spent the last however long just sat just reading, like not getting distracted by anything else. And it is taking a while. Like the writing is really tiny, and it's not what's the word? It's not fast paced at all. So it's like dragging a little bit. So I'm gonna see how much further I can get before I fall asleep, and then carry on tomorrow. But I have no real opinions as of yet because I've just done the introduction. Nothing's happened, so hopefully it gets a bit better. So it's the morning of day 2 of my More Than It Hurts You reading vlog, and I have not got very far, to be honest. Last night's update, I just finished section 1, and in that section we met the parents and the baby was taken to hospital unwell, and the initial tests, and that was the whole of section 1. I started section 2, and to be honest, it was like starting a completely new book, because it just kind of switched to a character we hadn't met before. It was an ex-convict, and he was just being released from jail. And to be honest, when I read the Goodreads reviews about this book, lots of people had talked about how there was time spent developing characters that just weren't necessary to the story at all. And I have a very sneaky suspicion that this guy is one of them. In fact, I think he is only in the book to kind of show us the kind of childhood and upbringing that the doctor from the first part of the book had, because it talks about his kind of personality and his lifestyle and his relationship with his daughter, who is the doctor. So if that's the case, then I can see why people are getting pissed, because it's not an easy book to get through. It's quite a slog to read, and to then spend time on characters that just aren't necessary or relevant, I can understand it. So as of this moment, I'm currently up to page 70. I still don't really have any opinions about it, other than it's a bit of a hard read. So I'm going to spend the next hour before the day gets away with me, because I've got a to-do list as long as my arm. So I'm going to spend the next hour just sat reading and see how far I get into it, and see if I've got any opinions after that. So the hour is up, and I managed 36 pages, which isn't much, but like, this writing is just, it's tiny, tiny, tiny. I'm at 106 now, so I'm just over a quarter of the way through the book, and still nothing's happened. It's a lot of backstory. There's just a lot of building up of the characters, and I think it's gonna be too much, to be honest. I think this is the issue that people have had with this book, because I'm just waiting for something to happen. I don't need to know that back in college this doctor studied hard and didn't really have much of a social life. I couldn't care less. But I'm just going to keep plodding on. I've got some work to do, and then I'm going to get back to this later on today. And I really want to try and get another couple of hours done on it. See if I can plough through a bit more. So bye. Right, so I have no idea what day I was up to on reading More Than It Hurts You, because I think it was February when I was reading it, and it's now May. I just, I completely lost interest. It is a very dry and a very slow book so far. I stopped at around the 100-ish, 150-ish page mark, and just never picked it back up again. But for some bizarre reason, I've decided to give this book another chance. So I went back a bit and sort of caught myself up to where I was up to. And I've now got to a page 186 so far. And yeah, it's still boring and dry. I have no idea why I'm doing this to myself. But I feel like, gosh, that's a big moth. Yeah, I'm gonna keep going, and I'm gonna try my best to finish it. I don't know why I'm doing it. I have no idea. I've possibly lost my sanity. I think my brain cells have been dying in lockdown, and I'm just making stupid decisions. So, there's still pages and pages at a time that you could skip because they have no relevance to the story whatsoever. At this moment in time, what's happening is that the dad in the family, Josh, he is at a work event, and we've had extremely long and elaborate, detailed descriptions of this work event that just weren't needed at all. They just weren't. And at the moment, the mum is at home alone with the baby, thinking about how she doesn't seem to have her husband's full love or attention or something like that. So we can kind of see what route it's going down here. And that's where I'm up to so far. It's day 5,000,001 of reading More Than It Hurts You, and I'm up to page 320 out of 401, so I've not got long to go. But the whole book has just continued with just irrelevant information. Like the page I'm on right now, there is literally half a page that's just a list of stores that are on a street. I mean, like, and it's not a list, it's just one after the other, line after line after line, and it's just irrelevant. I don't need to know what stores are on the street that the people are driving down. It's bonkers. This book could have been so much smaller and so much more interesting, and it's just not, unfortunately. But the main event has happened. The boy is now in foster care. Child Protection Services took him off his parents, and I'm at the point now where they have their first supervised visit and the lawyer is on the case. So I've got like, what, 81 pages to see if it all kind of resolves. Well, let's see. Hi, right, well, I have got 50 pages left in More Than It Hurts You, and I'm determined to just power through. I've got my little feral one here that is completely naked, and we are sharing a lovely bowl of strawberries whilst we relax. He's watching YouTube, and I am going to just get through this because it just needs to end now. And yeah, so the truth still hasn't come out. 50 pages left out of a 401 page book, and the truth hasn't come out. We as readers know what's happened. Nobody else seems to know what's happened. The child is still in foster care. It's got to end. I don't get it. Let's see what happens. And it's done. I don't even know what to say. I can't tell you if the representation of mental illness in this was accurate, because I have no experience in my previous professional life with Munchausen's by proxy or fabricated illness in others, or whatever they've renamed it now. It just wasn't what I was expecting. The end came very quickly, and it was very boring, the end. I don't know. It was an odd book. The characters weren't likeable at all. The parents weren't likeable. The doctor wasn't likeable. You ended up, like, you wasn't rooting for anybody at all. You couldn't relate to the characters. You couldn't be on their side. It was just really odd. And I've said before, but lots and lots of time was spent describing people and things that had no influence on this story whatsoever. Very long, detailed descriptions of stuff like the guy's workplace, and I didn't need to know that. And then there was chapters upon chapters upon chapters focused on the Doctor's father, and you kind of he kind of plays into the story right near the end, in the last 80 pages, no less than that, in about the last 50 pages maximum. He does kind of come into the story, but not enough at all to justify all the time that we spent focusing on him previously in the book. Like, it could have been a very brief kind of background, and then that came into play later. We didn't need to follow him for such a long time. And then it did really weird things, like medical acronyms. So obviously this is a very medical focused book, and the medical acronyms in it, it was very odd in that they weren't written as the acronym, but then they also weren't written out in full. What the author did was write them out phonetically, which was really odd. And if you weren't, if you didn't know what they were getting at, it could be very confusing. So obviously I picked up on them because I've got a medical background, but if you didn't, you might have got very confused about what they were talking about. So for example, IV, the letters IV, it stands for intravenous, which means putting something into the veins directly, as opposed to oral, which is taking it by mouth, for example. But instead of writing IV, or instead of writing intravenous, he wrote I as in EYE, like your eye, and then VEE. And it was just really odd. I don't understand why he's done that. And then the ending was just, like, it was supposed to be a climax, but it wasn't written very well. It was kind of like just flat. It was very flat. I think that's the whole book, is just very flat. Like, this surely would be a very emotional story, a very emotional subject for people. Having a child taken away by CPS or social services would be horrific, and having to go through all that kind of judgment and investigations, but there's just like there's no emotion in the book. It's really bizarre. So yeah, it's done. I can get it out of my life. That's the best thing I can say about it. And I don't think I will be reading any more of this author in the future if I take this book as indicative of his writing style, because I just didn't enjoy it. So the whole idea about reading this book and vlogging it kind of came about because I'd initially just wanted to read this book. It was something that I was interested in. I wanted to learn a bit more about this mental health aspect, and the book sounded like it would be really interesting. However, once I received it and I was about to start reading it, I did have a look on Goodreads and spotted that it was rated quite low, and that people had not been very favourable towards the book in the reviews. And I had this idea about reading a low rated book, kind of like a little experiment as to is it still worth giving a book a chance, even if the general feeling about it is that it's not a very good book. And unfortunately, in this situation, it wasn't. It just was. I think that the ratings and the reviews that were on the lower end. So this genius has just managed to completely forever delete the last part of the video, so I'm having to film it again. So what I was saying was that the reviews and the ratings on the lower end of the scale, in my opinion, were completely correct. So should I have taken those into account initially and just not read the book? I don't know. Because, on the other hand, I recently read The Wives by Taryn Fisher, and I absolutely loved that book. Really, really, really loved it. Yet on Goodreads, that's got a very similar rating to More Than It Hurts You, 3.71. So I would say that's another middle of the road book, same as More Than It Hurts You. So if I would have read those reviews and ratings before reading The Wives, would I have still read it? So basically, 2 books that on Goodreads are rated very middle of the road, very mixed reviews from people. Some people really enjoy it, some people really don't. I've read 2, and one I absolutely loved, and one I really, really didn't like. So basically, I feel like I can't just write a book off because of the other people's ratings and reviews. So that means this entire experiment was pointless, and I've learned nothing, and it's going to change nothing about the way I read. So thank you for watching a really pointless video. Hopefully I'll be back soon with another really pointless video, and I will see you all shortly. Bye.